Thank you for making the effort to be here. Really appreciate that. I'm trying to give us something that makes it worth your time to come, so that it doesn't seem like a obligation. I just have to show up, but you actually want to do it. And I'm going to be sitting again on what we started with on the two basic styles of leadership. You've got managerial style, and then online they just say leadership versus managers, which you got hundreds of different styles underneath seemingly both sides. I mean, everybody's got opinions. But I'll call it managers and servant leaders. And like, I'm going to do some review here before we jump into some new stuff. But like I said, the first one, if I would have been taught or known this principle early on, when I was that age, and not married yet, and not formed yet, it would have so totally changed my life. Because I grew up around a bunch of farmers. They're all entrepreneurs. They all think like entrepreneurs, which makes them all basically managers. It's the manager mindset. And our servant leadership that we heard, we went to church, and yeah, we got to be servant leaders. And our servant leadership is telling someone else how to do it. That was our servant leadership concept. It's like, you don't know what you're doing? Well, I'll tell you how to do it. I'm trying to help you out here. I'm serving you. And it's like, no, you're actually still managing. You're not into servant leadership yet, but I didn't realize that till a long time later, that's what was going on. But so even if you're not married, if you learn this, it will change life dramatically. This is interesting. Give me that first slide, if you would. This is interesting, why men need to lead. 3.5% of the family gets saved if the child is saved first. 17% of the family gets saved if the wife gets saved first. But if the husband gets saved first, 93% of them will follow. Isn't that crazy? The impact a man has to lead is, there's one example of it. And this country is starving. We're in a drought when it comes to good male leadership. Even the secular world is starting to say, where are the men? We've lost our men. So there's a number of things being written about it in an effort to try to turn it. And I found some stuff that I thought, well, finally, we're seeing this. Because, like I said last time, I found this between the last session we had and this one. But like I said last time, men have been portrayed like Everybody Loves Raymond or Tool Time. Men are the idiots. And if it weren't for their wives, men would destroy everything because they're the idiots. So give me that next slide. Popular media portrays men as angry goofballs. Sitcoms, commercials, even comic books depict men as weak, bumbling, unreliable, greedy, irate, selfish, dangerous, unfit for authority, and or stupid. Some show men as cute, and their ineptitude easily tolerated. And that's what makes them cute. They're so inept. But in general, they show masculinity as toxic, even deadly. Flip the next one. Belittling men is popular, modern, and trendy. And this part's really true. Tell a joke about men's incompetence or laziness, and you're going to get a laugh. Tell a similar joke about women, and society will label you as politically incorrect and even a hater. Boy, that's true, especially in our society now. The next one, gender studies at most universities teach students to see men and boys as entitled and oppressive, especially if they're white or come from somebody who's been kind of successful in life. But in fact, men are in crisis. So let's see some statistics. According to the U.S. Department of Education, 134 women graduate from college for every 100 male graduates. And it's not just bachelor's degrees. Bloomberg reports as 2017, women between ages of 18 and 24 earned more than 2/3 of all the master's degrees. See, now that's a flip. meaning there were 167 women with master's degrees for every 100 men. Dr. Farrell, Warren Farrell, a prominent author and educator, says that a major part of the problem is what he calls dad-deprived boys. At a Marin County TEDx event in 2016, he said, prisons are basically centers for dad-deprived boys. For instance, in California, since 1980, we've built 18 new prisons. There has been a 700% increase in prison population in the United States since '72. That's a 93% male population. So 7% of the prison population in California is women. 93% is men, and most of them did not have dads. Wow. On the average, in the United States, since we have had one school shooting per week since the tragedy at Sandy Hook in December of 2012. I didn't realize there were that many. Apparently, they're not all making the news. Males are perpetrating most of it. You don't have women going in there shooting up schools. You got guys. So our male population is in crisis. Before age 9, girls and boys commit suicide at about the same rate, and it's really low. But between the ages of 10 and 14, twice as many boys as girls commit suicide, so it doubles. Just going in junior high. Then it gets worse. Between the ages of 15 and 19, high school, 4 times more boys kill themselves than girls. And you get to college age, it jumps to 6 times. See, now none of this is by accident. This is the result of what we've been doing in our culture. Almost everyone agrees that one problem is the lack of male role models in boys' lives. That makes the problem self-perpetuating because absent men in one generation create more absent men in the next, and on and on and on. We can only stop the cycle if we address it. Even when fathers are in the picture, they are not always present for their sons. And they got a term for it, it's called absent father. You know, among boys who have dads in their lives, the boys talk to their fathers an average of 30 minutes a week. Meanwhile, boys spend an average of 44 hours a week on their phones, watching television, on computers, or with whatever other kind of electronics. And their point is boys will find role models. If dad doesn't do the job, someone else will. In other words, if we don't want the latest singer to serve as your child's mentor, we need to step up and do the job and not hand it to him. So guys are in crisis in the nation. This isn't just a non-believer phenomenon or just a Christian phenomenon. This is guys are in crisis in this country, and it's not only this country. So we have to take a good look at how we're leading. And I'm starting with family, marriage and family. This morning we're going to focus a little more on marriage, but the principles apply everywhere. And the 2 basic types of leadership are managerial and or servant leadership. And they're described as managerial should be used mostly when we lead things like organizations, checkbooks, businesses, creating structure or guidelines for an organization, that kind of thing is more managerial, and we'll explain that here in a bit. Where servant leadership pertains more to people and relationships that we're working with when we lead. Now, if you're going to have a good organization that is going to be filled with people that are more loyal to the organization, you can't lead a large organization from the people at the top can't be servant leadership style with a few hundred people underneath them. But you have to have people in place who are. Because if it's only managerial, people will squirt and run from that. So let's jump into reviewing that a little bit. That is extremely important because I did not know that. For too many years, I did not know that in a family, you can't lead manager style and retain your family. You know, even if they still live with you, they probably have very little use for you. You know? And they're the children who can't wait till they're 18 because they're out of this place or sooner, because it's being dealt as a manager rather than a servant leader. Let's review a scripture we used last time, Matthew 20. Jesus refers to both of these styles here. Jesus called them to himself and said, "You know the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them." See, there's a manager. "And those who are great exercise authority over them." So there's a manager style of leadership. "Yet it shall not be so among you," because the scripture is not necessarily written with the first priority being how to build a business. The scripture's written with the first priority of how to build relationship. Doesn't mean there's not business principles in there. They're in there. It's just not the first focus. So with that in mind, Jesus says you can't do that managerial style of leadership and have relationships, but whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant, and whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. So he set the example, and he gave his life for us. So the first part, the managerial leadership, it's lorded over. The people in charge or the person in charge have the full privilege over another. That's another different translation, put it that way. Or the authority is exercised over, and you're controlling, you're subjugating, you're exercising dominion over the family, the wife, the children, whatever. I'm in charge. I'm going to tell you what to do. That will backfire long term. It doesn't work, and the sad part is that most men, that's what we think leadership is. We're in charge. We're going to take charge. We're going to take control. That style of leadership entered when sin entered. Remember back before sin, Adam and Eve were both given the ability to rule and reign on the earth. They were equal. And then that all fell apart in the Old Testament, and it became a very much patriarchal, man-controlled system. And then Jesus came and restored it and made women and men's rulership ability equal. Women can, from God's perspective, women can do anything men can. There's an order of authority that was put in place in marriage. And scripturally, it's the only place it's put in authority. Now, we're up north, and a lot of times up north, we're still kind of that Old Testament male-dominated thing. Women need to learn their place and stay at home and cook and clean, and the guys are going to do the important stuff. That don't work well in a family. Kids go rogue over that. Wives get bitter. It just doesn't work well. There has to be an order of authority in a family, but it cannot be the managerial style. For instance, I'll give you an example. When I was growing up, I was in junior high, and I was facing some of the big questions of how do I tell my friends I'm not going to go party with them. So this came up as for whatever reason, it got brought up when all the relation was together, grandpa and grandma and aunts and uncles and this, that, and the other. And this was, to make a long story short, this was Grandpa's response. I said, so what do you tell them that makes sense to them? He said, you tell them Grandpa said so. That's all they need to know. That's right there. That's that managerial style of leadership. We don't have to reason with you. This does not have to make sense. I said so. It's lorded over. And because I said so, you will obey. And out of that came the hippies of the 60s. To you. They were not going to kneel to that anymore. And you will find that your wife and your family will not want to yield to that and follow it. But because of sin, it's our go-to style of leadership. Look at this, Genesis 3. To the woman he said, here's the curse on the woman. I will greatly increase your pains in childbearing. With pain you'll give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Her curse would be, rather than him looking for a helpmate and a companion, he was going to treat her like a piece of property, like he was going to rule. See, there's that managerial style of leadership, and it kicked in as a curse. It actually is a curse to lead that way, which I didn't know. It's the only style of leadership I saw. So my goal here is to try to, for any of us who are still caught in it, to try to rock our brain a little bit, to see things where we see a different style of leadership, because the managerial style is very controlling. And personally, I think it probably was enhanced by Adam's anger with Eve. Why did you get me into this spot? It's your fault, woman, because that was the theme of the whole Old Testament. That, it's a woman problem. So here's one thought that a lot of times once we're married, we don't realize this. A principle of how do you view your family. Your family and your wife are volunteers. They don't have to stay with you. Now, that flies in the face of the Old Testament dominance. I'm in control. What are you going to do about it? They'll leave you. They'll just start doing their own thing. They don't have to follow a person who is lording the authority, exercising the authority over them. And frankly, they probably shouldn't, because they're so supposed to submit to us like they were submitting to Jesus. And Jesus doesn't use the managerial style of leadership. He's a servant leader, and that's what he told us to do. But that is extremely important. I've said it this way. I think I can say it now that you've read that. You have to remember your wife is a volunteer. She volunteered to marry you. And we can flip this on women too, but we're not talking to women now, we're talking to guys. So we're just going to hit that one perspective. She volunteered to marry you. And I was actually taught by a pastor, once she married you, what's she going to do? There's nothing she can do anyway, so then you're in charge. And it's like, that was really Old Testament teaching. That was bad, because it did not foster a good relationship right out of the gates. It's where the word comes out of, you just need to learn to submit to me. Because if you'd submit, we wouldn't have any problems. That's a manager talking. That you put that in a business setting, it's just a manager saying, you just need to learn to do it our way. I don't care what your ideas are. We don't want them. We've already decided how this company's going to run, so shut up and do it our way. Wonderful employee relationships come out of that. They're going to be looking for the first place to leave. When they get the first chance, that's what they're going to do. Even in the business world, where the basic incentive we use is money and benefits. Why do you stay with the company? You don't necessarily like working there. Well, I can't find anybody that'll pay me what they pay. They got awesome benefits. So that is the thing, that's the hook, even in the business world. That's the hook. We generally don't go to work because we like what we're doing. We go for the paycheck and the benefits. They give me 4 weeks of vacation a year. I can't find any place that'll give me 4 weeks a year. This is awesome. I'll have to put up with some stuff, but this is awesome. But yet, you take that same employee and push them hard enough, you're going to find out they're still a volunteer. At some point, the money and the benefits won't be worth it anymore, and they'll leave you. So the whole concept of servant leadership has to be, even in business, has to flow in that realm. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. And of course, there's a lot of variables that maybe later we'll get into some of them, but I just want to bring it up. Depending upon what kind of personality or person you are, if you're an aggressive person versus an affirmative person versus a passive versus a passive-aggressive, everything in manager and servant leadership changes according to your personality. An aggressive person absolutely wants to be a manager. Affirmative leans that way, but they can be a good servant leader too. A passive person does not want to manage anything. Let her do it. I'll never do it right for her anyway. Just let her do it. It'll be peaceful that way. Which again is like, well, yeah, that's going to go over great. That's not scriptural. It doesn't work that way. We need men who will lead and not let her do it. It is funny, Mary just said it yesterday again, because she catches so much flack for up north here being a woman pastor. That's not even scriptural. And, she's always catching flack for being a woman's pastor. And she said again yesterday, she said, you know what's funny with all these male chauvinist managers? If you would remove the women from the church and all you'd have is men, you'd get nothing done. They'd all be standing around giving orders, hoping somebody does what they're being told to do. And it's like, well, yeah, you're right. She was angry. It's like, why can't they see themselves? Well, because they've been taught not to. We've been taught to see ourselves a certain way. So depending upon, a passive doesn't want to be in charge at all. A passive-aggressive takes charge quietly and silently. They're the one who just walks out the door and does their own thing, and they know their wife's in disagreement, but who gives a rip? I'm going to do it my way. That's a passive-aggressive. And they're the worst out of the four. So if you're passive-aggressive, hopefully we can talk about it in the future, but you are extremely difficult to get along with because you're stubborn, you're going to do it your own way, and there's nothing that can be done because you're so passive, you won't communicate and put your feelings and your thoughts and your ideas and your goals and everything right out there. You'll just go do them. And everybody around you is going to have to live with it. Because what are they going to do about it? I married her. She can't leave. No, wait. She could, actually. And I can guarantee you, your children will. Soonest chance they get, they're gone. Because they're not going to live with that. But unless they're taught something new, they're probably going to come with the same style of leadership. So let's talk about what we brought up last time. We're going to kind of sit on this. Next month, we got Dale Witherington's going to be sharing and talking about leadership and guys. Then we got a couple of months, January, February, we're going to sit on this same managerial servant leadership stuff. Then in March, Kendall Qualls is going to be with us, which that's actually a really big privilege because he's now becoming a national speaker. And like on the 29th of November, he's traveling. Where did he say he's going? To speak with some big organization. So it's like, wow, that's cool. So we're going to have a few months to be able to talk about some of this stuff, and I wanted you to be able to really remember it. So rather than just giving you PowerPoints, could I have one more? Could you help us out here? Whoop, go ahead, Eugene. Rather than just giving you PowerPoints, I wanted to give you something that you could take home. And the first 4 pages are more of an in-depth explanation. We went over it last time, but we went so fast, just kind of laying the foundation. that we never got a chance to really talk about much. This morning we'll talk a little more. And then page 5 is for you to, it's kind of a summary. You can, that one's all, stands all by itself. You can tear that one off and put it on your desk. Put it someplace where you can look at it a time or two every day and kind of shift the mind thinking. So you can follow us with the PowerPoints if you would, Kevin, so that the people who watch the recording, they won't have the paper unless, they download it. We'll get it to them that way. But otherwise, let's go to the next one. Manager versus servant leadership. Make sure everybody got one. Number 1, and this is going to be on your paper just like this. The manager style consists mostly of this. A few people, or in your family, probably one person, decides how the organization or company or the family will run. Now, we're talking to guys now, but guys, women can do the same thing to you. To where it's the woman who decides how this family will run, and you just kowtail to her. That's why your family's struggling, because she does not carry the anointing to do that. God put you in that spot. But it can, like I said, it can be flipped with women too. But we're talking to guys now, so let's talk to guys. How the organization or family will run with little or no input from the rest of the people. So if it's guys, you don't really want the input of the wife. You don't really want the input of the children. Now, servant style, first point, everyone involved has input to what's being decided. Now, when the decision is made, there might be a few people, mom and dad, who actually make the decision, but the entire family, and this comes out of business stuff, so I didn't change it any. I just took it as they were talking business. The entire organization has the right to give input and is encouraged to do so. What everyone thinks matters to the final decision. There's the style of leadership we're going after. Can you back up to that first slide? That's the one we want to get away from. I'm in charge. I will decide. I don't care really what you think, or if I do let you talk, it's like in one ear and out the other, and it's like, well, I don't agree with it, so I ain't even going to pay attention to it. I'm still going to do what I want to do. That's the one we want to stay away from, and go to the one where everybody has input. Yeah, somebody has to make a final decision, and that is scriptural, and it should be mom and dad working together. And hopefully dad is the one that finishes that. But that's the one we're after. So there's 6 points that I found that I took some 2-3 different studies, and I put the 6 points together because they weren't together in one study, where they kind of laid out managers and servant leadership. So I want to we'll get as far as we can. We're not in any hurry. But I did this for you also. And I'll give this to you at the end. This is, because if I give it to you now, you're going to be sitting there reading this, trying to figure out what your wife said. This is the results of the survey that we did last Sunday. And we just boiled it down into the main points that came out of it. Number 1, there was 40 surveys turned in with writing on them. Some of them were turned in blank because they probably didn't have the guts to write down what they thought with their husband sitting next to them. But number 1, 23 out of 40 ladies said this: defend me, have my back, support me, not blame me, or compare me to somebody else's wife. Understand me and where I'm coming from as a person. 23 out of 40. Okay, so now go back to the managerial style. Let's plug that in here. Manager style consistently a few people. Well, let's just get rid of the few people because we're not running a 300-person company here where you got 5 owners. So we don't have 5 people deciding how this company's going to run. We got one. It's Dad. Okay? He's going to decide with very little input. Defend me. What does that style of leadership do when a problem comes up in the family, especially once they're late grade school, junior high, high school, they're going to start challenging some of the decisions that are being made in the family. That style of leadership will throw mom under the bus. Well, I wouldn't be doing it this way, but your mother, see, I'm in charge. I don't care what her input is. I'm not going to defend her or have her back or support where she might be coming from. I will blame her for what's not going right. The number one thing the women had put down. Hang on just a second, so I'll lose my thought, and then I'll never circle back. The same thing happens in big companies. There's a lot of people that quit big companies and start their own and struggle all their life, but they got their own company. Do you know why? Because they're getting away from that. They don't want that. They get so tired of that they just bail on it. That is the concept where in the big company, you're a number. They don't have your back. They're not going to stick up for you. They're not going to defend you as an employee. When things go wrong, you get the blame. And depending upon what goes wrong, you're going to lose your job, especially if it's a visibly seen thing. Like, for instance, anytime something goes wrong in the government, people are fired. Somebody's got to be to blame. And it's not going to be the managers, the guys at the top, even though they're probably the main ones to blame. Somebody's head's going to roll. Bringing that concept in to a family produces women who are saying, will you please support me and defend me and have my back on some things, rather than blaming me and throwing me under the bus. Understand me as a person. Well, to do that, you got to go to the next slide. You got to have servant leadership. To understand, you got to have her allowed to give input and understand what she's trying to say and what she thinks matters, what the children think matters. We're going to actually gather the information from everybody and try to lead this thing the direction it goes rather than command it. I haven't forgotten you yet. You got your question yet? Hang on to it. You say, well, how is that done? Just the other day at Walmart, they're going down the aisle, and the guy is telling the woman what they need and what they don't need. She reaches for something. We don't need that. You need to grab this. Honey, we've got one at home yet. Well, you need to have another one. Grab that. Doesn't care what she thinks or wants. He's the one in charge. We're going to keep this under $200. And whether we get everything you want or not is irrelevant. I'm not here to serve you, nor do I really care what your opinion is. And if you pay attention at Walmart, you see it all the time. We're not buying that. Honey, really, little Joey's got holes. I don't know, pick from shoes on up to shirts or whatever. He needs some clothes. We are not buying any clothes for him. It's a manager talking. And we're not going to ask Joey, because of course Joey's going to want clothes. Well, what if Joey has a valid point? And he needs clothes. Well, we ain't spending on it. That's a manager talking. And you know what happens if you do that as Joey keeps growing up? He's going to get older to where he's going to look at you like being a jerk. Because he's going to talk to other children, his friends, who aren't walking around with the kind of clothes he's walking around with. And he's going to start looking at you like, I wonder what my dad is thinking. No. And then he's going to start watching how you treat mom and everybody else. And when he gets old enough, he's going to smile and tell you to go to hell. I want nothing to do with you. Because remember, he's a volunteer to the family. He did, for some reason we have this concept that when you're a family, you're going to be a family forever. No, they're actually all volunteers. And they want to participate with the family is why they participate. Once they quit wanting to, then they won't anymore. Well, Grandpa's going to get in there and make them, or Grandma will make them. The matriarch of the family, you can't tell her no. You watch. You watch them tell her no. It's going to go that direction. So to preserve relationship, if we're one of those guys who, this is what we're buying, this is what we're not, I don't care what you think or what they say they need. This would be a good time to change that, because you'll lose them on the long run. You may lose the wife. You may lose everybody. You'll lose them on the long run. And the kids might walk quicker than the wife. We've all heard about they become adults and the kids are all grown and married and gone, and now mom and dad got a divorce. Do you know why that is? Manager style. She stuck with it, sacrificed in an effort to get the kids raised, because she probably couldn't do it on her own. She needed the income. She needed the help. But they're raised. They really don't want anything to do with the family, mom and dad. Why am I in this? And she'll bail. Rarely at that age is a man divorcing a woman. It's a woman divorcing the man. And this is the core of it, in my opinion. She's been managed, controlled, blamed, told how she's going to live this whole time. And when she sees light at the end of the tunnel, she says, I'm out of this. I'm done with this. Not doing this anymore. What was your question or thought?
No, I was just going to say, when you were talking about that survey that the Lutheran Church took, that defending me. When I've been counseling couples, and
I'm going to hold the mic your direction. Just don't go on forever.
no, I won't. So when I've been doing counseling, and it was a husband and wife, one thing that has appeared occasionally is outside factors is that where the parents of the husband and her wife are doing some blaming whatever, and one of the couples is taking side with the parents rather than with the spouse.
Yep, absolutely. That's more common than you'd guess. But you're absolutely right, and it goes back to that first point. In-laws are not happy with whoever it is, the guy or the girl, and they don't get over it. They just keep grinding that axe, and pretty soon their own child, whether it's the guy or the girl, starts taking sides with their parents. Loyalty issues come up. And now the spouse is being blamed and not supported, and, well, you know what he's like, or you know what she's like. And I'm the innocent one. They're the problem. That marriage is ripe for divorce. Because it's not servant leadership, it's a manager talking. I'm trying to run this organization, but when the woman is not with you, what are you going to do with her? Well, we know, honey, we know. We kind of thought you shouldn't have married her from the beginning. And, well, I did it, and now I'm trying to do the right thing. So now you're going to be the spiritual hero while you're destroying her. Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. So we're going to, as you can see, there's a lot of things, and you'll notice in your handout, I have it listed number one. The first one is a manager style. The second number one is servant style. Then it's going to be number two, and flip the page, it's number two. So these are all 6 points cut in half, one from the manager style, one from the servant style. So take this. This is more the full explanation. Page 5 is the one you can put someplace to remind yourself. Like the first point we just made, a few decide how the organization operates. That's manager style. Leadership, servant leadership, everyone's input is part of the operation. It doesn't explain it all, but it reminds you. Did you even get her opinion in an honest way? You know, did you even ask your kids? You know, the manager. Oh, this room is shambles. Joey, get in here and clean your room. I expect it done before supper. Joey goes in, we leave. That's a manager. Now, what's real is depending upon how old Joey is, 3, 4, 5, he don't even know how to clean a room. Who's taught him? Well, he took the toys out. He knows how to put them back. Manager talking. So what would a servant leader do? The first few times, go in and clean it with them. Honey, this is how we do it. I mean, when you take the toys and just scatter them like this, now look at the big job we made for ourselves and use it for a teaching moment, a bonding moment. Now we've got everything to clean up. Where if you'd have taken the blocks out, played with them till you were done, and then this is how you do it. You put them back in the box like this, and you put them back on the shelf. Now the room's still clean. Now take something else out. But you took everything out. See, now what you're doing is by serving him, you're leading him. Versus, get in there and do it. And then when he doesn't do it, well, now he's going to get a spanking. Well, the poor kid probably has no organizational skills. It's not been given to him. It's mom and dad who have to give him those skills. And if Les mom's been in there helping him clean his room, and then this comes up in counseling all the time. Well, if she wasn't in there babying him all the time, he'd learn how to do his job. Well, maybe she's not babying him. Maybe she's actually teaching him. This is how you do the job. Now, granted, at some point, you know, these two styles of leadership are not totally separate. At some point, you do have to manage some things. And if he's junior high and he's still doing the same thing, you need to either check to make sure all the marbles are rolling the right way, or he's just plain rebelling on you. And just, you know, up yours. I'm going to do what I want to do. Well, now you might have to do more than, honey, I've helped you clean your room 100 times. I know you know how. You know, even God, while he's trying to serve us, will give us consequences occasionally. God disciplines those he loves. You know, there comes a point where we know exactly what we're doing. We're just being stubborn and pig-headed. Well, God sees that, and at that point, it's no longer, I don't need to teach you anything. You need to get a grip on your flesh and change the approach. But right from the beginning, if all we're doing is, and I was guilty of that last example I just gave, the kids cleaning their room, I was guilty of that. I was raised the manager mentality. And Mary'd say something like, well, go help them clean. So I did what servant managers do. I stood at the door and said, put that there. Put that there. You missed it. Pick that up. Get on it. Come on, you can't just leave stuff. See, I'm serving them. I'm managing them. I'm bossing them around. I'm not taking care of them. I'm commanding them, you know, kind of thing. But that's all I knew. That's why I said, had I known this early on, it would have saved a lot of fights in the family. Because Mary would hear me doing that, and she'd say, you're not helping them at all. Well, see, now I'm insulted. Because I'm using the best manager skills I have. And I am helping them. Who do you think you are to tell me I'm not helping them? Well, she's coming from the angle of you're not teaching them anything, you're just bossing them around. And now, this many years later, looking back, guess who was right? She was. I was just playing out what I saw my dad and my uncles and my grandpa and my friends' parents. I was just playing out everything that they showed me. This is how you run a company. This is how you run a family. And most of what we do comes from how we were shown by our parents. So I'm going to give these to you. We broke everything down in the survey into 8 points. And it's listed 23 out of 40 were that first point, 22 out of 40 made the second point, and what we did is just took a summary of what they were saying over and over and over, just summarized it and wrote it down for you. Down the bottom, you have about a fourth, 10 out of 40 on the bottom 3. And don't lose these, and we will get you to where you can download them on your device too. Don't lose these, whether on your device or paper, because next month Dale's talking, so we won't revisit. It'll be January. We're going to come back, pick up right where we're at. I'm not in any hurry to get through these. My point is try to get us to shift in our thinking, to help us realize what I wish I would have been shown way back there. But I wasn't shown way back there. Nobody explained this. So it took me years and years and years, and as a result, some wreckage in the wake to try to learn, so servant leadership actually gets down on their hands and knees and picks up blocks with their children and explaining to them the process and how this works? My dad never helped me pick up toys. He rattled the belt if I didn't. So I remember as a little kid, I did the best I could. And we had a big toy box, and it was a destruction zone. And stuff piled around it because I couldn't get it in because I didn't know how to organize anything. So Mom came and helped me. She actually did more of the servant leadership than Dad did. But I'm a guy. I don't want to grow up and be like Mom. I want to grow up and be like Dad. So my style is going to be his style unless someone challenges me with something to think about and say, new information, so I can make some changes here. Because without new information, what are you going to change to? Anybody got any questions or thoughts you want to throw in before we're done? Yeah, I'm with you. Now a bachelor's means nothing. When I went to Bible college, a bachelor was like, you don't need any more than that. Very few people got masters. One out of a few hundred got a doctorate. So it was very, very low on the priority list. So I went to 4 years of Bible college. Nobody brought anything like this up. Boy, I wish I'd have known. It would have changed things so dramatically.
So would you say to your wife, because we've been taught this, we've been modeled this, and it's easy for us to, under pressure, default into this style.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say to your wife, okay, honey, I give you permission to pump the brakes and tell me I am being too managerial right now? Is that how would you set the groundwork to say, okay, if I'm getting in this way, I need you to get me back?
Okay, the question was, because we've been taught this and we kind of go to this as the managerial style as our default, how do you communicate to the wife that she has permission to help you? Okay? I would, number one, say, you tell her what you just told me, or whomever, and say, what would you be comfortable with in helping me with this? Because some women are so scared they'll never say anything, And then some women are the managers, and you give them that, you'll have no say-so. They'll just take it over and run it for you, and that's a whole different realm we need to talk to the women about. But you're going to have to find a way that both of you can communicate. Excellent question. The main thing is safety. Right, the first one that was brought up. And guys, if you want to help me hand those out. The first one was brought up, defend me, have my back, support me, don't blame me. See, that security, that feeling safe is huge being cried out, even though I didn't use the word safe in there. That word is just being yelled at us. I need to feel safe with my husband. I'd say communicate and find out how it can be done. Every family's going to do it a little differently. You have those, and I don't know what the percentages are. You have those few that the women actually want to take it over and run it because they grew up on tool time and they actually believe you're an idiot. You can't make a good decision. They're not going to follow you. So that is a different scenario. The bulk of the families, though, are not that way. Women want to follow their men. And we're just doing some things wrong that keeps them from wanting to do it.